what's up. She wants to sit by
Thank you everybody for coming today to this occasion on this cold day. Grateful for all of you that are here. I'm Charles Workman. I'm a grandson of Don, of Grandpa Don. And just to start off, I'd like to whether it be through personal visits, telephone calls, notes, social media. It's nice to see all the personal condolences and to show that he was loved and that he'll be missed, and I know the family's grateful for all that, so thank you very much. had the I've had the occasion to be involved in a few of these types of events, these funerals, and what I've tried to do in every single one is try to remember my thoughts and any inspiration or anything that comes to my mind, and to use that. While we're here for Dawn, there's no reason that we can't be uplifted and that we can learn something from this. So I encourage you all to personally reflect on the memories that we shared and just conversations we have. You'll be able to take those and personalize them for yourself, and you'll be edified and uplifted. So the program will go as follows. This is in loving memory of Don Charles Workman, born October 28, 1932 in Riverdale, Idaho, and passed away January 15th, 2025 in Preston, Idaho. This funeral is taking place at Webb Funeral Home on Monday, January 20th, 2025 at 12 p.m. I'm Jared Workman, grandson, will be conducting this funeral. The pallbearers will be Nathan Lowe, grandnephew, Parker Richards, grandson, Hunter Wood, grandson, Brian Workman, grandson, Chase Workman, grandson, Jared Workman, grandson, Dakota Workman, grandson, and Colt Workman, grandson. The honorary pallbearers will be Cody Lowe, nephew, Randy Lowe, nephew, Jordan Lowe, nephew, J Lowe, nephew, there we go. Don Richards, son-in-law, William Sputwood, son-in-law, R. Scott Workman, son, Todd B. Workman, son. And following this funeral, the interment will take place in the Treasureton, Idaho Cemetery. Prior to being here, the family prayer was offered by Madison Richard Gleason, the granddaughter, and the prelude and postlude music was offered by Cheryl Burton. And we will begin by having a congregational hymn, number 86, How Great Thou Art, accompanied by Cheryl Burton, and the chorister will be Elisa Lowe Bittner, grandniece. And then following the congregational hymn, we'll have the invocation by Chase Workman, grandson.
Our dear Heavenly Father, we're so thankful that we could be gathered here today as family and friends to celebrate the life of Grandpa Don. Please be with us this day and let us feel of thy love and of his love. And please bless us so we remember all the good times that we've been able to have and be able to remember the memories that we've made with him over the years, and that we might be able to remember them throughout the rest of our lives and never forget him. Please bless us that we'll be able to have an enjoyable day even on this somber day. I'm thankful for all that was done for us, and we say these things in Jesus Christ. Amen.
We'll proceed on with the program by first having the life sketch by Don Workman Richards' daughter and Parker Richards' grandson. We'll then have a musical number by Scott Workman's son, Randy C. Lowe, nephew, Don Lee Workman Richards' daughter, Roseanne Workman Wood, daughter, Todd B. Workman's son, and the old family favorites, with Sheila Lowe, niece-in-law, accompany us. Following the musical number, we'll have a sharing of memories of Grandpa, and Emily Lowe Hanson, grandniece, Nathan Lowe, grandnephew, and Rachel Lowe Simpson, grandniece, will share those with us. And then following the memories, we'll have a poem by Colt Workman, grandson, and then we'll go to that point.
Don Charles Workman was born October 28, 1932 at the family homestead located on the flat between the communities of Riverdale and Treasureton, just north of Preston, Idaho. He was the youngest son of Myrl Workman and Rhoda McCarrel Workman. He was told by his father that Doc Cutler charged him $50 for his birth. He joined a family of 4 living siblings, sisters Lena Margaret, Bernice McCarrel, Dessie Anona, one brother, Daryl Hyrum, with one deceased sister, Audrey M. Around the age of 3, the family moved to the Treasureton location. Dad remembered as a little boy riding in the back of the wagon on the sacks of grain over to the Oxford elevators. When Dad was 6, he recalled Wanda Charmaine being born in the home's back bedroom. The family grew when she was later adopted. Dad attended grade school in a small school building located across from what was once the Treasureton Ward Church House. Grade school was fun with everyone as your friend. When he graduated from grade school, he remembered being so embarrassed as he was asked to give the closing prayer. He went blank when it came to the end, so he quickly mumbled something and sat down. There was 4 in his graduating class: Luana Wells, Janelle Bosworth, Gary Castile, and Don.
Extended family was always present in his life. He stated often that his aunts were good to him. Growing up was a lot of fun as relatives were close, so there was lots of cousins to play with, especially older Paskins boys, Terry and McNeil. And for a while, Dennis McCarrel. Sometimes relatives would come live with the family to help work on the farm or when there was need. The old house was always full. The Workmans and his mother's family, the McCarrels, were very supportive of each other. This love of family continued many years as Grandpa Don was a huge part of organizations of his mother's family reunions. They were often held at the farm or in Preston, where Grandpa had arranged for facilities and assisted with the food. These were great times, providing an opportunity for him to visit with the beloved aunts, uncles, and cousins. As a child, Grandpa Don remembered riding horses and playing with dogs and cats that were always around. Memories of playing with Nona and Daryl were mostly pleasant. But Daryl, being 4 years older than Don, would often give him a bad time. Butter churned at home wasn't a favorite because Daryl played a trick on Don when he blindfolded him and told him he was eating snot. After this, Grandpa Don never could handle the texture of cold, solid butter. It was okay if it was melted on a hot potato or toast or popcorn, but solid made him gay. Food was always filling at Grandpa's childhood home, with most of it raised on the farm. One of his favorites was biscuits and gravy, and he remembered having it often. Eggs were plentiful, but egg whites were not loved as a child. Whole wheat mush was a special treat. Don liked breakfast foods, and this continued through even his last days at the assisted living facility.
Trips to Yellowstone, fishing, and hunting trips were some of the family excursions. For entertainment as a young man, Don, usually accompanied by one of his cousins, would catch the train from Preston to Smithfield and go visit relatives. At 14 years of age, he and Terry Paskins took the train to California to visit Aunt Allie's family. Trips to the beach and picnics in Mexico were part of the adventures. After several weeks, they rode the train back home. As there was no bus to town for high school, Dad had to live in town during the week. His folks rented a home for Mrs. Benson his first year, and it was miserable. It was a single room with a little wood-burning stove in it. Imagine being 14 years old and living all by yourself in this own little tiny room. During the winter, it was freezing cold. He remembered going to bed with all his clothes on to try and stay warm. And at one point, he had a bedmate. But that wasn't necessarily good, as the bedmate would occasionally wet the bed. For meals, he would usually heat a can of chicken noodle soup on the wood-burning stove. On weekends, he would catch a ride out to Riverdale so his mother and dad could pick him up. When he was 14 years of age, he bought a little scooter and used it to drive back and forth. Between his sophomore and senior years, Dad stayed with Dick and Hazel Ward, Ida Beth and Denton's parents. This was much better, as it was like being in a family home. And for 5 cents, Aunt Hazel, as Don would call her, would fix his meals. To help pay expenses during high school, Dad worked in the corner cafe as a waiter. While in high school, Dad played on the baseball team and was in high school musicals. Singing was a special part of his life. As a senior, he sang the lead tenor role in the opera The New Moon. He attended multiple music festivals while in high school, traveling to Twin Falls and Boise, but he never remembered staying overnight on these trips. In 1954, Dad was honored to sing Bless This House at the dedication of the Treasureton Ward Chapel. This involvement continued in later years as he assisted Lyle Shipley and Carl Hoffman with transporting scenery from musicals to other locations. One trip was a visit to Randolph, Utah for the high school's presentation of My Fair Lady. If you have ever been to Randolph, you know that there isn't very much there, and the only room in town was above a local restaurant. The room was nice, but when the restaurant closed for the night, that also turned off the heat to the rooms. Needless to say, it wasn't the most pleasant night as the weather was cold. They were all glad to see the cook come in to open the restaurant that morning. During his life, Don sang at many funerals, usually accompanied by his friend Maxine Hymus. The songs that we are singing today are ones that Dad and the family sang often.
Following graduation in 1950, Grandpa Don and his cousin, Dennis McCarrel, and two of Dennis's friends took a road trip to visit his brother, Daryl, who was on his mission in North Dakota. This trip took them to Glendive, Montana, Mount Rushmore, and the Hoover Dam, and then home via a long way through New Mexico so they could visit some girls. That fall, Grandpa went down to Utah State Agricultural College and took a class in welding. For money, he worked on the family farm, at the pea vinery, and for different farmers around the area. In the fall of 1955, he and his friend Alan Frere decided to visit Don's sister Bernice, who was living in New Hampshire. They took Grandpa's 1950 Chevy Bel Air, which had been bought for $2,200, with stops in Chicago and New York. They made their way to Bernice's, mostly staying with friends or extended family along the way. Coming back, they went to Albuquerque before heading to California. In California, they collected Grandpa's mother, Rhoda, and Aunt Afton, who were visiting Aunt Dessie and Aunt Ollie. Then they headed home. This trip took over 10,000 miles and took 6 weeks. Grandpa remembers that the highest they paid for gas was 19 cents. They really had a great time.
In 1952, Dad started to drive the school bus and worked at the J.C. Penney store as a clerk. This is where he met Dorothy Ann Burton, marrying her on October 8, 1954. They spent more than 3 decades together. Life was busy as Dad was taking on more and more of the family farm operations from his father. These included the dry farm, a dairy operation, and beef cattle. Dad also partnered with Jerry Mink to raise sheep, a partnership that lasted for over 20 years. Jerry, although much older, was always a special friend to Dad. In the fall of 1955, they acquired their first home, a house that was used by the railroad people who worked in Clifton. It was moved over from Clifton to Treasureton and remodeled to include 2 bedrooms, a bathroom, a living room, and a kitchen. In December of that year, Scott was born. Over the next couple of years, more children came. Don Lee, quickly followed by Roseanne, and then Todd. The house had got pretty crowded. So in 1964, the family home was expanded to its current floor plan. This turned out to be a blessing, as in 1966, with the passing of Don's sister Anona Burton, it brought the addition of her boys to the household. While the oldest boys, Jay and Dirk, didn't need a place for long, the 2 youngest, Randy and Cody, found a home with the Workmans until their paths took them elsewhere. Dad's life centered around his family and becoming a successful farmer, rancher, and dairyman. The farm was a family operation, with everyone pitching in. Dad worked hard and expected it of others. He had a certain way that he wanted things done, and you usually learn that he expected it done his way. He expected you to do your very best. Not sure that was appreciated as a child, but it is something that has helped to mold each of the children as they have become older. You definitely knew when you had not lived up to Dad's expectations, because your full name came out with additional emphasis. Todd B., Roseanne, and so on.
Work came first, but there was also time for play. Once the chores were done, the cows milked, every animal fed, the rocks picked up from the fields, the hay bales rolled just right, etc., the family would often head to the United Narrows Reservoir. This location was like a family reunion every time, as the Burtons, Dorothy's family, would travel down from the Cleveland side. They would boat, water ski, and picnic until it was time to head back to the farm to milk the cows. Grandpa was asked by one of the grandkids about floating the Bear River, and he indicated that this just wasn't a thing when he was a child. Over the past several years, Grandpa found the interest increased dramatically, with perhaps 20-plus cars parked below the dam or by the stop at Cave Mountain. The Cave Mountain location was a frequent visit for Grandpa, as the Workman's cattle would come over the mountain from Stove Hollow to the river for water. As the world became more concerned about environmental issues, the cattle were no longer allowed down to the river. A water trough needed to be placed there on the side of the mountain. While he was able, the job of driving up every day during the summer to check the pump became Grandpa's responsibility. This was not an easy job, as it required you to get down in the pump. On one of these occasions, Grandpa got down by the pump and couldn't get out. With all the traffic, he tried to signal for help. All the floaters thought he was just a friendly farmer waving at them as they prepared to float. Eventually, Grandpa was able to get himself out. As the children got older, summers were spent involved in 4-H with lambs to raise for the fair, cooking and sewing for the girls, and horse rides and events for the boys. These events involved the Hollingsworths, Claire and Beverly's family, whether it was working with the Woolly Warriors or hauling horses for the River Riders. Grandpa was always there or providing the resources. He would often work late in order to make up for the time spent. Each child could probably share multiple highlights from these adventures. The culmination of these efforts was always the Franklin County Fair, with long days, as this was haytime or grain harvesting season. This involvement continued for many years as Grandpa and Stowe Hollow Farms was a purchaser of multiple Franklin County Fair fat lambs.
Fun with the Hollingsworths didn't stop. There were camping trips, usually up to Cottonwood, as it was close enough to the farm so that someone could head home mornings and evenings to milk those darn cows. Later, there were trips with just the adults across the United States, perhaps to pick up a newly purchased school bus for the Preston School District. And of course, attending the parade and the famous Preston Night Rodeo every night was scheduled until it was too hard to climb into the stands. The rodeo was always a big event, as relatives would come from all over, especially Daryl's family, with his son Kit and wife Jill still making an event every year. Family trips to California to see Lena and her family and enjoying time at Disneyland and the Rose Parade were highlights. Stops in Phoenix to see Daryl's family, sometimes at Thanksgiving in blizzard conditions, occurred. As Dad's family aged, the farm was the constant, and with Don's home located just across the lawn from his mother and father's, he got to see everyone. Especially fun for the children was when Lena's girls would come to stay with Grandma and Grandpa Workman. Mary and Beth and Jerry would organize games, write and help present family skits, and just have a great time. Anytime the relatives came, especially the city ones, it was an adventure. The horses were hooked to the buggy or saddled up. Everyone went to milk the cows, even if they didn't know how. Rides up behind the house over to Stowe Hollow or up to Cold Springs happened.
About 2 years ago, Roseanne and Spud took Grandpa and my son Finn on their side-by-side riding up in that area. They stopped and had lunch at Cold Springs and enjoyed listening to Grandpa tell the history of the farm. A trip over to the west side of Bear River, complete with tossing rocks in the water, was a great adventure for all. If any family wanted to go up the road to see the farm, Grandpa was always happy to show them around. As his children entered high school, Grandpa Don made every effort to attend football games, basketball games, volleyball games, high school musicals, band functions, cheerleading events. If he could make it work, he was going to be there to support his children. This support continued into their college years, as he helped provide them with tuition, housing, and transportation. He was proud of his children and wanted them to succeed.
Dad loved the community of Treasureton and the people that lived in the area. Most of the families had lived there since he was a child, so they were considered family. In the winters of his middle years, several of the Treasuretonites, the Reeders, the Hymases, occasionally Fred Hess and others, would go on their snowmobiles every Thursday, making day trips to Strawberry or up to Cottonwood. They would go to Jackson Hole, Wyoming, and one time they went as far as Jackson Hole and over to help take care of feeding the elk that winter in the area. This love for Treasureton included maintenance of the cemetery, a responsibility that Dad took very seriously. Many of the original settlers of Treasureton are buried there, including his grandparents, father and mother, and some of his siblings. His father had been a sexton at one point, so at an early age he helped to dig graves and take care of the grass. Dad served as sexton for over 20 years, reluctantly giving it up at the age of 91. He always wanted it to look well maintained, and in his later years recruited family to help with the grooming and watering. Trips to the cemetery almost always included visits to the Denton home, which was just up the road. He loved to visit with Malcolm and Ida Beth and enjoyed the continued relationship with their children, especially Richard and Loma. Side trips to visit his friends Beth and Dallas also were a pleasure.
Hunting season was a big event for Grandpa and highly anticipated. As a child, he didn't remember a lot of deer being around the area. He contributed this to the Native Americans' presence and the early settlers and their needs. Well, one of his first times he remembers going hunting was with his dad and Uncle Hugh, his mother's brother, up to Pine Canyon. Boy, was he excited when he got a 4-point buck during hunting season. The hunters would gather and spend most of the morning canvassing the hillside for that prize game animal. Lunch was usually a quick sandwich, a thermos of hot beverage, and perhaps a cookie or candy bar, while they watched for any movement. He was impressed when he went hunting near Cleveland with the Burtons, as they had prepared a fancy Dutch oven dinner for them to eat. Until it became too difficult to go, these hunting trips remained a big part of life on the farm and are still cherished events for the next generation. There were always horses on the ranch. Those animals were not only ridden for enjoyment, but they were also ridden for assistance in doing tasks on the farm. Spook, Dana, Peanuts, Honey, and Paint were all part of the family, but the most loved by Grandpa was Prince, a large horse with a strong personality. When Prince headed for home, he did so rapidly.
With his background in agriculture, Dad was a board member of the Idaho Grain Producers Association for the U.S. Wheat Commission and a representative on the local ACS committee in the Franklin County Grain Growers. A highlight for him was a trip in 1987 as a representative for U.S. Wheat. He, along with the other delegates and representatives for the Department of Agriculture, visited several Pacific Rim countries and Bangladesh. This included stops in Seoul, Korea, Tokyo, Japan, Beijing, China, Hong Kong, Bangkok, Thailand, Bangladesh, multiple locations in Malaysia, Singapore, and the Philippines. The delegation spent 3 weeks visiting companies in these countries, trying to learn how the U.S. producers could market their wheat, which included lobbying for better trade deals. Dad felt very privileged to participate in this experience.
In 1966, Grandpa was visited by Ed Gosner with a request that he become one of the first producers to supply milk to the new plant being built in Logan. He had milked cows since he was a child and had seen the progress from hand-milked cows with it stored in cans in a cooling trough to milk transport via pipes to bulk tanks prior to transporting to the plant. He continued working with the dairy until the operation was sold to his son, Scott. He was very proud of his association with Gosner Cheese and their products. In the early 70s, he became a charter member of the USU Trading Table, a program that exchanged farm commodities for tickets to Utah State University sporting events. Grandpa enjoyed attending these events and supporting the university.
Dad formed many friends through his farming associations, with Gene J. Smith and Bud Thomas considered special ones. In the 1990s, Dad became a snowbird, spending time in Arizona. Jerry Meek's daughter, Geraldine, and her husband, Boyd, had a home in Salome, Arizona. Dad and his high school friend, Blaine Dunn, and others from the area were soon winter residents there. Time was spent enjoying each other and riding the trails on their four-wheelers. These were great times. During those years, he also formed friendships with the group at the local gas station, the Hot Chocolate/Coffee Club. Dad was proud to be considered a charter member, having moved with them around Preston to different locations until finally settling into the gas station on 2nd North. No matter how bad the roads, he was headed in. These visits continued till he was in his 90s and just could not make it. Over the years, this bunch of gentlemen had helped him through some hard times, including him on hunting trips, boating on the Snake River, trips to Pocatello to watch Preston High School football games, and multiple other outings.
Sunday dinners were a highlight for Grandpa, as his daughter, Roseanne, started to host Sunday dinner for him, her family, and any nephews and or nieces in the area. These were great times for Grandpa, as he got a home-cooked meals, read the local paper, caught up on all the comings and goings, and sometimes got a nap in his favorite chair. When he got so that driving was difficult, transportation was also provided, with his daughter Dawn Lee, my mom, who had moved back to the area, now taking every other Sunday. These meals always included a cheese and pickle tray, it's very important, with bread and butter pickles, a favorite of his. He loved to watch old westerns, but had probably seen most of them multiple times. Grandpa always had cash in his wallet, and if he was going out, a hat on his head, usually a baseball cap with either the farm logo or Ron Keller tire. He was unhappy when, after 88 years of mostly wearing cowboy boots, they became too difficult to get on, and he had to start wearing a pair of outdoor loafers. When it became apparent that living on the farm was too difficult, Grandpa found a home at Heritage Senior Living. While he was not one to actively participate, he found that he could relate to many of the staff as he knew their families or they were related. Calls to and from Aunt Wanda, Jerry, and Mary Beth were something he enjoyed. If you asked him how he was doing, it was a quick, not worth a damn, as it frustrated him that he couldn't be independent. Grandpa could be a real curmudgeon, but his strong work ethic, frugal lifestyle, persistent attitude, and giving spirit are traits we can all follow.
Just a farmer, you said, and I laughed because I knew all the things that farmers must be able to do. They must study the land, they must watch the sky, and figure just when is the right time and why to sow and to plant and to buy and to sell, to go to the market with cattle and well, you know the books that farmers must keep, to pay all those taxes and be able to sleep. And you know the fixings that farmers must do when machines like mad monsters blow a gasket or two. I guess when God needed folks to care for his herd, he chose just farmers because he knew their true worth. Love you, Dad. We're speaking on the microphone.
Stand up so we can see her.
Jared's got a step stool for me. Wait, I gotta get my glasses on. Why? Come on.
He That is officially my new favorite memory. And it's not supposed to make you cry when you sing about chickens. Here we are. I know the program says that Grandpa Don was my uncle, but I'm here to tell you with no funny business, he was my grandpa, who also happened to be my uncle. And being the oldest grandchild, it seems fitting that I would have the oldest memory, but that honor goes to a story at least 4 years older than me, and it turns out the honor of the oldest memory was taken by one of the great-grandchildren, Rob Bittner. So I want to start with that. Rob and his family, my sister Elisa and her kids, had gone to visit Grandpa at the nursing home. They got talking about Halloween candy and dressing up, and Grandpa told them that he and his friends didn't get any treats when they were little on Halloween. I'm sure you can all guess the shock that went through the Bittners, and for the record, the love of sugar runs deep at the Bittner household. But Halloween without treats, what kind of nonsense could this be? So instead, Grandpa told them that he only did tricks. So when the kids wanted to know what kind of tricks, he told them he and his friends like to go out on their horses and go outhouse tipping. Since Grandpa had horses and didn't possibly have indoor plumbing for some of his life, this story is pretty easy to believe. Since he's not here to disclaim himself, we declare that this is officially the best or greatest or worst Halloween trick ever known to Workman family legend. Rob, being a 10-year-old boy, thought this was hysterical. Right, Rob? And what Rob probably didn't know was that Grandpa didn't likely mean those blue sterile things that could be hosed down and carted off with the trailer. He probably meant the actual family plumbing. Boy, would I like to know what happened when the mamas and papas of those young boys found out what they did. I have so many questions. It turns out that most of these memories inspired more questions, so today we have some questions for our grandpa.
Yeah, so the first question would be, Grandpa, what kind of movies did you like to watch? And I got a great memory from it. When I was in the car, I used to come and stay with him on my drill weekends. And after my day was over, we'd go hang out. We didn't talk about a lot, but we watched a lot of John Wayne, Bonanza, and Gunsmoke. And I developed a love of John Wayne because of that. And then speaking of movies, Grandpa, when did you find out you were a big movie star? So, among the legends in the Workman family is that Grandpa was a movie star. And Todd, you know, you think the story's about you, but since it's not your funeral and those Hollywood types never did list who it was on their credits, you can work it out with them and get back to us, and we will happily correct the record at your funeral. Until then, this is Grandpa's story. I think you all know what movie we're talking about. How could you miss it? He's from Preston, after all. It's Napoleon Dynamite, to be exact. You know the one. Some crazy redheaded character is running down a road in the middle of the field where a combine is working on the harvest. We know from Grandpa's own thoughts of the film that he was wondering what kind of dummy would run back and forth down a dirt road in the middle of a farm field in the heat of summer. But in that scene, you see Grandpa, caught on film for generations to admire, doing something he truly knew best. Grandpa is the true star of the show that year and every year, driving the combine across the field and getting in the harvest, just like he did every day, every year for his whole life. Those movie stars, we got nothing on him.
Grandpa, can we go to Burger King? Maddie and Parker remember Grandpa taking them to Burger King enough times it was cemented in their memories. I bet they aren't the only ones. Maddie recalls whenever I would go to town to visit Grandpa, he would offer to take me to Burger King for a Whopper Jr. burger. It seemed silly and small back then, but great memories were made. Parker says whenever I would go help him at the cemetery, he would always go to Burger King afterwards. We hereby declare that wherever you are at in the world next year on President's Day weekend, that you go and eat a Whopper Jr. in memory of Grandpa Don.
It's a declaration. You have to do it.
Grandpa, next question. What is the latest time you've ever slept in? Parker is convinced that Grandpa didn't actually understand the definition of sleeping in. Grandpa would let Parker and his family borrow the camp trailer to go camp at the river. Grandpa would even share his stuffies with Parker's girls. And side note, did anyone know Grandpa owned stuffies? This was new to Emily. Anyway, Grandpa would always come down in the morning for breakfast and see how their night had gone. Parker says he always showed up around 9 a.m. because he was letting them sleep in. Pretty sure Parker's definition of sleeping in was a bit different.
Grandpa, what's the strangest thing you ever ate? When my daughter Bella passed away, Grandpa was there at the funeral, and my memories of that day are a little clouded with tears, except for one very, very distinct memory. My husband and I had been called to serve in an LDS Spanish branch, and at the time the Relief Society president had told us that none of the ladies in the branch knew how to make funeral potatoes or rolls, but they did know how to make beans and rice, and we'd be okay if they brought that instead. And absolutely, Steve and I were like, yeah, bring all the beans. That these are not the standard beans and rice you would find at your average Mexican restaurant. This was a smorgasbord of colors and flavors. I mean, yellow rice with frozen peas. I mean, there was a variety, and from many different Latin American nations. So Grandpa came up to me and said at one point, and I remember this so distinctly, this might be, and I can hear his voice in my head, this might be the strangest funeral lunch I have ever eaten at. So of course we all had to ask him, because Steve and I were like ecstatic. We love that kind of thing. And he said, but did you like it? And Grandpa, being Grandpa, hemmed a little, and then as politely as he even knew how, said, I suppose it wasn't that bad. And it wasn't long after that, we were at Thanksgiving, my parents, in fact, I think it was the same year, and we served him some pumpkin pie. And I was under the impression that he really liked pumpkin pie, but he kept asking for more cream. So Steve would take the squirt cream to him, and Steve's only 8, and the squirt cream is precious, because when it was gone, right? So Grandpa would ask for cream, and so he'd come over and like squirt him some cream, and then Grandpa would take a bite, and then he'd say, can I have some more cream? So he'd go over and squirt him some more cream. And then finally, it was happening every bite, and so Steve was like, what the heck, I gotta try this pie. So Steve, my husband, took one bite and spit it out, because we had forgotten the sugar. And so we've been serving Grandpa squash and pumpkin spiced eggs. It's a new thing. And he hadn't said a word, he just kept asking for more cream. And so every time I see a pumpkin pie or squirt cream, I think of Grandpa gulping down his squash and pumpkin spiced eggs. Nate remembers eating a lot of Spam. I don't like Spam. But Nate doesn't know if Grandpa liked Spam either, or if he just thought that Nate did.
So yeah, next question is, Grandpa, how are you doing? And the first thing Parker plans on asking Grandpa is how you're doing. And this was their standard greeting for every Sunday dinner at Rosie's. Grandpa would always then reply, not worth a damn. And then Parker would respond well, could be worse.
Grandpa, just how many hours did you spend shooting the bull in the mornings with your friends? More than one grandchild reports that if they needed to find Grandpa, they just had to look at the gas station or coffee shop in town where you would find him with his breakfast buddies shooting the bull. Based on the number of times this memory was shared, it's possible he never left. I remember, Grandpa, why were you so ornery? I remember and letting me ride the four-wheeler up the hill and him coming out just yelling at me. And for years, I just thought he was so scary. And then just a couple years ago, we stopped to take my kids to the farm. It's probably the only time they've been there. And the thing he had to say to me when we visited was, I was so worried about you when you were on that four-wheeler. I was sure you were going to roll down the hill. And that was a great lesson to me. He wasn't ornery. He just really loved us.
I need to preface this story with the person who told it to me being literally halfway across the world in Bangkok, so if you get embarrassed, he who shall soon be named, you can take it up with him, okay? So in Jordan's words, my favorite Grandpa Don stories were in college, and he was with a few neighbors who were all girls. So one friend said she'd never been close to a cow before and had always wanted to see one milked. I said, what? Really? Do you want to see some? Because my grandpa's farm has a bunch and it's only 45 minutes away. She and the other girls all thought I was joking. I told them I was serious, and the next thing you know, we are all piled into my car driving our way to Treasureton. I called Grandpa on the way and asked if I could bring some friends to see the cows. He said, sure. When I got there, all the girls got out of the car and Grandpa shouts, and you guys, I wasn't there as a witness, but I know I hear these words in my head. Grandpa shouts, oh shoot, lost my place. You didn't say all your friends were girls. You've got enough girlfriends. Why don't you share some with your brother and single cousins? I'm gonna tell Chase he needs to get down here real quick while they are here. Jordan says, I thought Grandpa was joking, so we went into the barn and he hooked up a cow to the milker and let all the girls get up close, and they loved it. I'm sure they had a crush on Jordan after that, right? Stinky cows, but whatever. A few hours later, I had a message from Chase saying, Chase, do you remember this? Grandpa says you brought some girls by the farm and didn't tell me. I thought it was so funny that Grandpa had actually called Chase to tell him. And almost every time I saw Grandpa for the rest of his life, he would mention, that time I brought all my girlfriends to the farm and didn't share with any of my cousins. Jordan made sure to ease Grandpa's worry about him ever getting married. Besides his mom, Grandpa was the first person Jordan called when he started dating his wife, Hannah. He was driving from Washington, D.C. to visit her in Cleveland, and he was so excited he wanted to tell someone. And it was a really long drive, so he called Grandpa first and told him about Hannah. Then for the rest of the drive, Grandpa told him stories of his life. Later, on the day before his wedding, Jordan and Hannah, who had been living across the country, came back to visit right before they got married here in Logan. And he took Hannah out to meet Grandpa Don. And he says, I loved sitting with Grandpa Don the day before my wedding in the little greenhouse at the farm. He told Hannah, and I all about his trips to Asia and his time spent in Thailand. This was important because Jordan and Hannah were preparing to move as newlyweds to Thailand. He was so excited that Hannah and I were going to be moving to Bangkok. He shared so many fun stories about all the countries he had visited as chairman of the Idaho Grain Commission. He said his job was to try to get Asian countries to buy more grain from the States and to eat less rice. Grandpa told a story about how for a minute in China he was pretty scared when the people he was meeting with said, we will buy more grain if you stop sending us all of your bad grain. And I'm pretty sure those aren't the words Grandpa used. Before that, Jordan never knew that Grandpa had left the U.S. He recalls, it was so comforting to me that Grandpa had been to the faraway country that was so foreign to me and that I was so nervous to move to with my new wife. In case any of you are wondering, Hannah got to meet the cows too.
So, Grandpa, how do you back up the trailer? Okay, in actuality, none of us actually wants to ask Grandpa this question. We aren't even sure if any of us will ever properly know how to back up a trailer. But we're pretty sure it goes something like this way, no, that way, stop, start over, do it again. Grandpa, how many plots, trees, headstones, water spigots, potholes, and rocks and dead people are there in the Treasureton Cemetery? Grandpa was in charge of the Treasureton Cemetery for years and years. He took great pride in his work there. More than one grandchild remembers going out there to help. Dakota says, one of the things I feel fortunate to have done with Grandpa was helping him work on the Treasureton Cemetery from time to time. I admired the pride and care he took to tending to it. I have no doubt it was one of the nicest cemeteries in the area. While working there, I'd ask him about the people buried there, and he'd tell me about the ones he knew. You could tell he cared for and missed them.
Grandpa, who mows the lawn better, Chase or Jared? Given what we know about Grandpa and his OCD at the cemetery, it's probably fitting to tell Jared's lawn mowing story next. Jared says, growing up living in the same yard as Grandpa Don, us three boys, Brian, Jared, and Chase, had the job of mowing the lawn. I always knew if I didn't get it mowed regularly and in the way Grandpa proved, that he would definitely let me know I was doing it wrong. Like my lines not being straight, or how not to run into trees so I wouldn't kill them. I always found this kind of ironic, since he was known to spray Roundup all over the yard and then wondered why his trees were dying. I learned after coming home from my mission that Chase must have been the better lawnmower because Grandpa had been paying Chase to do it. Boys, I guess someday you'll just have to ask him to settle the debate.
Grandpa, do you know what the great-grandkids have to say about visiting me? Brian says each time he took his kids home to the farm, Grandpa would be there to give them each a $5 or $10 bill. Little Wren, Colt's daughter, upon arriving to visit Grandpa, told her mom, "This is the place with the best popcorn." Grandpa always offered to share his snacks, and Wren loved it. When Grandpa was living in the home, he didn't want trick-or-treaters, so he had his door closed tight. But when Chase and McKenna and Ellie barged in anyway, Grandpa didn't have any Halloween candy, but he did have leftover birthday treats, so little Ellie got to take them home with her.
Grandpa, how did you remember to manage all those birthdays? Grandpa didn't miss a birthday. If you didn't answer, he would just sing happy birthday to you on your voicemail. Maddie says about 10 years ago, she started letting it go to voicemail on purpose on her birthday so she would have a recording of Grandpa singing happy birthday to her. I'm going to share that now.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Maddie. Happy birthday to you. Over with a nice day. Love you. Bye.
So Ben, if you feel a little lonely on your birthday, kid, Maddie's got 10 memories to share. Speaking of birthdays, Grandpa, what kind of cow was it? Just yesterday, my mom told me a story about when I was just a tiny baby. My parents were young, still in college, and I was just a bundle of beautiful, inexpensive joy. My mom describes it as living on a wing and a prayer, when one day Grandpa showed up on their doorstep with a check and said, "Here, I stole the cow for you." I don't know what it takes to sell a cow. I'm definitely a city folk. I don't know if he run it into town or drive it across the state, but I imagine that he knew just which cow. Or maybe he was selling a bunch and decided to sell an extra one, but I can see his capable hands hooking up a trailer, backing it up for himself, and herding the stubborn beasts into the trailer. I'm told the words he used to actually describe the cows aren't appropriate in public. I can imagine now as a 44-year-old woman that with my own share of beautiful, if expensive, bundles of joy, how grateful my parents must have been. So, Grandpa, thank you for the cow.
Grandpa, what does it mean to be a workman? Colt shares the first thing I thought when Grandpa passed away was sadly sitting up in heaven. Relaxing, playing video games. And Grandpa rolling up with a whole herd of cows and time to get to work. For the record, we think you've got it about right. A quote from a well-wisher on Grandpa's obituary page says, he had a very fitting last name. Everyone knows, if Grandpa's working, you better be too. Parker remembers, as a kid, whenever I'd come home to stay on the farm, he would always make sure this same kid was taken care of. One summer when I was at Utah State, I helped on the farm, and Grandpa wanted to show me how to plow a field. I fell asleep after one lap and woke up when he was done. Holt says I remember going up onto the ranch with Grandpa to pull Dyer's boat. We'd ride up to the ranch with garbage sacks and shovels and spend the day hiking around the ranch, shoveling up quick. Just the way Grandpa said, Dyer's boat still rings in my ear. Every time I see that yellow plant, it reminds me of him. Luckily, it's an invasive, noxious weed, so I have plenty of chances to see it, and think of times I spent with Grandpa on the ranch. On the Workman Ranch, you quickly learn to understand hat signals. Colt also says, my favorite hat signal is the one where you were doing something wrong or you're about to do something unsafe. How fast the hat is moving or how fast it flies up into the air defines how much trouble or danger you were in. Needless to say, I got quite a few hat waves as a kid, and I'm sure that is why Grandpa had so many hats. Colt also remembers his first old-timer knife that he received from Grandpa. It was one of his birthdays. It was a big moment to get your first official knife from Grandpa. Dakota writes, when I was younger, I was somewhat scared of Grandpa. He seemed intense, almost intimidating, but as I got older, perhaps as he did too, he seemed to soften. Or maybe it was just that my perception of him changed. I have no doubt that many of us, children and grandkids alike, have stories of being envied and honored at times. I'm pretty sure I do too, though I can't recall anything specific. What I do remember, though, were moments working on the farm with my dad and Grandpa. Grandpa often felt like the cavalry. If I was left in a field or to work on a task and heard a four-wheeler approaching, it usually meant Grandpa was coming to help me out, drive me to another spot, or was just coming to check on me. These interactions helped me see Grandpa as someone I could trust and rely on. He was always a hard worker, and as far as I knew, always dependable. Even when I was little, I was impressed by how much and how hard he worked. Hadley and Hunter were both impressed as well. When they would go work on the farm, they would frequently come home and tell their mom, Grandpa's a badass. Dakota continues, I believe that if not for some of the accidents he endured in his later years, he would have chosen to work until the day he died. Even towards the end, he would ask my dad how the farm was doing, how planning was going, and about different projects. Thank you, Dakota and Hunter and Hadley, for putting into words something about what it means to be a workman.
Last Sunday before my grandpa passed, I told my kids that after church we were going to visit Grandpa, Don, in the home, and my 5-year-old Hannah spent all of the sacrament meeting drawing him a picture and even wanted to know how to write his name so she could fold it and address it to him. She had drawn Grandpa and herself holding hands. We took it to his room with Aunt Missy, helped her tape it up. When I went to say goodbye to Grandpa, he didn't have any words, but his hand squeezed mine and wouldn't let go. He kind of stood there for a minute feeling awkward because he wanted us all to leave because we were loud. I felt like his eyes were desperately trying to tell me something. It was the weirdest thing. I've been wondering all week what it was he was trying to tell me. And after writing down all these memories, I think I finally know. I think I know what he was telling me. These words were not easy for him to say in life, and I do not think it was any easier for him to say them right before his death, but I know they are true. He was telling me, I need you to know I love you. I need you to tell them that I love them. Two days later, when we stopped to see him right before he passed, Hannah was with me again, and she didn't want to get out of the car. But finally, she came in and sat still and quiet through Grandpa's raspy breathing and Missy and Rosie's tears. And those who know my Hannah understand that this is a bit out of character for her, especially when she's near her grandparents or her buddy Uncle Don. But it's a tender moment I won't soon forget, because as soon as we went to the car, she said, "Is Grandpa Don going to heaven?" My sweet family, I don't have to ask Grandpa this question. This is a question I know the answer to. The scriptures teach that the spirits of all men, as soon as they are departed from this mortal body, and then the scriptures repeat themselves, they say, the spirits of all men, whether they be good or evil, are taken home to that God who has given them life. So yes, my sweet family, Grandpa Don has gone to heaven to be with Hadley and Bella and loved ones long lost. Of all the tests we face, none hurts more than the death of a loved one. The only way to take sorrow out of life, death is to take love out of life. But that is impossible, because you all are loved deeply by a very imperfect man named Don Workman. And through a perfect man who also loves us, named Jesus Christ, I know we will see him again. This I know to be true, and of this I have no questions. So, Grandpa, happy trails to you until we meet again. Happy trails to you. We'll keep smiling until then.
And on the 8th day, God looked down on his planned paradise and said, I need a caretaker. So God made a farmer. God said, I need somebody willing to get up before dawn, milk cows, work all day in the fields, milk cows again, eat supper, then go to town, stay past midnight at a meeting of the school board. So God made a farmer. I need somebody with arms strong enough to wrestle a calf and yet gentle enough to deliver his own grandchild. Somebody to call hogs, tame cantankerous machinery, come home hungry, have to wait until his wife's done feeding visiting ladies, then tell the ladies, be sure and come back real soon and mean it. So God made a farmer. God said, I need somebody willing to sit up all night with a newborn colt and watch it die, then dry his eye and say maybe next year. I need somebody who can shape an axe handle from a persimmon sprout, shoe a horse with a hunk of a car tire, who can make a harness out of hay wire, feed sacks and shoe scraps, whose planting time and harvesting season will finish 40-hour work weeks by Tuesday noon, and then pain and from a tractor pain put another 72 hours. So God made a farmer. God had to have somebody willing to ride the ruts at double speed to get the hay ahead of the rain clouds, and yet stop in the middle of the field and race to help when he sees the first smoke from a neighbor's house. So God made a farmer. God said, I need somebody strong enough to clear trees and heave bales, yet gentle enough to tame lambs and wean pigs and tend the pink-combed pullets, who will stop his mower for an hour to split the broken leg of a meadowlark. It had to be somebody who'd plow deep and straight and not cut corners, somebody to seed, weed, feed, breed, and rake and disc and plow and plant and tie the fleece and strain the milk and replenish the self-feeder and finish all week's work with a 5-mile drive to church. Somebody who would bail a family together with soft, strong bonds of sharing, who would laugh, then sigh, and reply with smiling eyes when his son says that he wants to spend his life doing what dad does. So God made a farmer.
Since I was asked to conduct this, I guess you all get stuck with some of my thoughts as well. So, it's fun to sit up here and see some of your faces and some of the reflections, some of the, just your expressions. Like when you were singing, I saw all the kids starting to dance. Saw some fun things like that. Even some of the adults were starting to shimmy a little bit, so it was fun. I talked at the beginning about how it's important in funerals to reflect on your impressions and your feelings and thoughts you have. And so during this, I've been jotting down some of mine. And they're not the typical thoughts I get, probably, because it's my grandpa. But it was mentioned that he always knew where you stood with Don, and that he didn't hide how he felt. So I can attest to that. Emily, wherever you went, I'm grateful for those memories you were sharing. And Rachel, he did have a different way of showing us that he cared about us. I can agree with that. Last meeting, oh gosh. We went and saw him at the assisted living center. And I've been away for a while. I'm doing school and career and stuff and wasn't able to make it back much. And so my kids didn't really get to know Grandpa Don like I did. So around Thanksgiving, I think after we had the family party at Todd's, we went in and saw Grandpa Don. And he was able to see all my kids. And like Emily said, he eventually gets tired, and I have 7 kids, so it's a crowd, they get noisy and they get a lot to handle sometimes, so they left. I had some time with him. He told me how proud he was of me. Everything I've accomplished. And also that I was sure as hell going to have my hands full with all my kids. Those were his words. Growing up and going through high school, he attended many of my ball games and various activities, and usually the day after, especially football games, I'd run into town, and the only way to get the stats and the newspaper clippings was to go in and buy them. So that was always the first thing I wanted to do on Saturday mornings, was go into town, and sure enough, I was at the gas station, and I'd always say hi, and he'd walk up and buy the newspaper for me. So I guess that was his way of paying me for all the lawnmowing I did. Not even. But going back to that, after all those times, that was the one time after at the Heritage, the Assisted Living Center, that was the first time he told me that I can remember that he was proud of me. So, just like to kind of go, and some other thoughts I had regarding all of us. Obviously, we're all here, we've all had experiences with Grandpa Don, either directly or indirectly through stories we've been told and things like that. Honestly, some of these are good memories and some are not so good. We all know the type of man Don was. And I was reading a talk, just a conference talk a few days ago, and when I had some downtime at work and I had to stay at work, I couldn't go anywhere, so I just started reading it, and it said the 2 most important words in the English language are thank you. So, Grandpa, thank you. Thank you for everything. Then later in the talk it said, the 2 hardest words to say in the English language are, I'm sorry. Again, forgiveness is hard. The scripture that says, I, the Lord, will forgive whom I will forgive, but of you it requires to forgive all men. After Emily shared a scripture and me sharing that one, I think I will not share any more scripture, or else Don might wake up and come and slap us. So, but that scripture I love, and I think that something else in there is that it includes forgiving ourselves. So it's important to forgive ourselves, and it is required of us to do that. Something else, thoughts I had for all of us is look for ways to build lasting relationships and memories. Because eventually time will end in this life, and regrets are a horrible thing to keep. Cherish both the good and not so good memories, and learn from them because you experienced them for a reason. So just to kind of reiterate, these services would not be a waste if we don't learn something from them to better our lives. We will finish this service by having a special musical number by Stephen Hansen, grand-nephew-in-law, titled May the Good Lord Bless and Keep You, accompanied by Emily Lowe Hansen, grandniece, or grandchild, as she is. And the closing, the benediction, will be offered by Brian Workman, grandson. And the dedication of the grave will be offered by Dakota Workman, grandson, at the Treasureton, Idaho Cemetery.
So as legend goes, this song was sung multiple times by Don on the request of people who passed away. So I've never heard this song in my life. Good Lord. That will cheer the
Our dear kind Heavenly Father, we're so fortunate we were able to be here today to hear and celebrate the life of Grandpa Don. We're able to hear things that stories from others and to feel the spirit that is here. We ask you to bless us as we travel to the cemetery, that all will travel safely. We can remember Grandpa Don as he was. And with that, stir our hearts. We ask you to bless everyone here with the comfort they may need. Help us all to find joy in this day in a life well lived. We thank for all we have, Father. We say this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. Amen.
Yeah, everybody rise, please.
I'd like to invite the pallbearers to step up here. You get up.
Yes, the car.